Rome had seen extravagance before, but nothing like this. No sooner had Agrippinilla's brother buried that old goat Tiberius than he began plans to unearth the city itself, not to lay the past to rest, but to rebuild Rome in his image. The Domus Tiberiana, the Domus Augusta, the Domus Augusti, once sacred and distinct to their inhabitants, Caligula now meant to fuse, reshaping them into one vast and seamless palatial villa, a living monument to the house of Germanicus. And that was only the beginning. A bridge, Caligula declared, would stretch from this new palace to the temple atop Capitoline Hill, a skywalk to the heavens so that he might abide with Jupiter Optimus Maximus without ever touching the ground. The sacred shrine of Castor and Pollux too would be subsumed, no longer to serve merely as a temple to Rome's divine twins, but also as a vestibule to Caligula's personal residence. There, he could sit between the divine brothers carved from stone and look down over the Forum Romanum at those who offered up their prayers. Even Agrippinilla's great-grandmother Livia Drusilla was to receive a temple, as if to offer Germanicus a divine ancestry that Augustus's blood had not granted him. Agrippinilla lowered her gaze. A faint smile touched her lips as one hand rested lightly on her abdomen. A divine ancestry, she thought, that will someday belong to you. Then her brow pinched, but only if we can wrest it back from Macro and Ennia. The summons to the Domus Tiberiana startled Agrippinilla. Normally she was invited, at night, by those who regularly attended Caligula's parties. But this was different. This was a message in writing, stuffed into the hand of the praetorian soldier standing outside her door, one of Macro's men. It bore no seal. There was no explanation, just a hastily scrawled command on parchment. Come to the Palatium at once. Agrippinilla dressed quickly, her thudding heart exciting the child in her womb. Throwing her husband's puller over her shoulders, she followed the soldier into the chilly morning air. When she arrived, she was ushered in without a word. The Palatium was quiet, unsettlingly so. No musicians played. No laughter echoed from the downstairs baths. No dancers weaved their way through corridors like spectres of Dionysus. This was the Palatium in daylight, stark, efficient, and haltingly cautious. Her sandals clapped against the marble as she followed the soldier through the atrium and into the courtyard. There, beneath a cypress, Ennia Drusilla sat trembling, her hair unkempt, her eyes glazed. "What's happened?" Agrippinilla asked quietly, slipping off the cloak and wrapping it around Ennia's shoulders. But Ennia's eyes remained fixed on the stone beneath her. "He's sick," she whispered. "The Emperor Gaius. He collapsed in the night." Agrippinilla froze. Her heart lurched, not with grief, not yet, but with a hollow dread. Caligula was young. He was strong, divine in his appetites. The idea of him struck down, suddenly, mysteriously, and following her brothers Nero and Drusus to the grave was unthinkable. And yet, she looked again at Ennia. The woman who had once laughed so easily now looked brittle, hollowed out. And Agrippinilla, sitting down beside her, wrapping what was left of her husband's cloak across both their shoulders, suddenly felt cold. "Who's with him?" she asked slowly. Ennia didn't answer, but the silence was enough. "Drusilla. Who else?" She had always been Caligula's favourite. From the moment she was born, he had seen her as a doll, a plaything. And Drusilla had clung to her big brother throughout their tumultuous youth, in Egypt, in Syria, and on the long journey back to Italy with the ashes of their father. From Brundisium to Rome, the children had walked behind their mother's mournful procession, each night sleeping in a different town and a different bed. Caligula always insisted that Drusilla sleep with him, in case she had nightmares. It was as if Caligula and Drusilla understood each other, to the exclusion of everyone else. When the man who murdered their father stood trial in Rome, and the sounds of the angry mob echoed into the night, tearing down statues in the Forum, Drusilla would sneak from the room she shared with Agrippinilla and Livilla, and climb into Caligula's bed, curling against him, her thumb locked in her mouth. But Grandmother Antonia had put a stop to that, when she caught Drusilla in Caligula's bed, the both of them naked. Agrippinilla had watched them, had always watched them, from the side. Sometimes it had been touching, other times unsettling. Their closeness made she and Livilla feel cast out. Drusilla deferred to Caligula with an obedience that felt not only sisterly, but almost daughterly. And Caligula, in turn, seemed to need her. She steadied his moods, soothed his rage, mirrored his delight. They whispered together. They played together. They mourned together. Even when they were taken from their mother, passed like burdens from hand to hand, Drusilla had always looked to Caligula. And now, as the city held its breath, it was still Drusilla who remained at her brother's side, cloistered away in silence. It was she who spoke to the guards, she who passed notes to the scribes, she who issued the updates read aloud in the Senate. Drusilla had become the voice of the emperor. And Agrippinilla and Livilla, once again, were dismissed from the stage. Weeks passed with no sign of Caligula. Each morning brought the same announcements, that the emperor was still alive, that his fever had broken, that it had returned, that he was improving, that he had relapsed, that he had not spoken, that he had spoken. Agrippinilla came every day to the Palatium. Alongside others of the household, she waited, always waiting, for information. No one was permitted to see her brother. No one but Drusilla, who they said had been with him when he collapsed. The reasons were never clearly stated. Drusilla had already been exposed, some said. It was a matter of containment. Others insisted it was the emperor himself who would allow no one else to enter. A third claimed Drusilla had never left his side, that she remained in his rooms both day and night, caring for him, alone. No physician was seen entering. No senators summoned. No augurs called. Only trays of food went in and came out, carried by a few trusted slaves, their faces drawn and pale. When she left at night to return home, the Palatium was silent. No music, no guests, no parties, only stillness. In the city, the same foreboding filled the temples. Crowds gathered daily to pray, just as they had once done for her father Germanicus. The lowest of Rome's citizens left coins, bits of jewellery, pigeons caught on rooftops, any offering they hoped might appease the gods, and return their beloved emperor. The highest ranks, those in the Senate and city magistracies, wept and rent their togas. And Macro was nowhere to be found. Not since that first morning, when she had sat beneath the cypress with Ennia, had he been seen. If he had spoken with Drusilla, it had been behind closed doors. For no one had reported that Macro was admitted into Caligula's presence, despite the praetorians who still stood watch outside. Agrippinilla sat in the courtyard, wrapped in her husband's puller against the cold October air. As dusk fell and she prepared to return home, her eyes drifted slowly upward, toward the higher floors and Caligula's balcony. There, a faint flicker of candlelight had begun to show through the growing darkness. Then she turned and briskly left the Palatium. Agrippinilla's husband Enobarbus sat in the tablinum with his sisters, Domitia and Lepida, all three visibly irritated at having been summoned by the woman of the household. But while Caligula lived and Agrippinilla's person remained sacrosanct, there was nothing they could do, except obey. "Whatever plans you have," she advised, dismissing their irritation, "whatever alliances you are creating, put a stop to them now, if you want to survive." Lepida's spine straightened, her eyes narrowing, the offence already taking root. Agrippinilla continued, How many times did the Senate think Tiberius was at death's door? And how many treason trials followed, after he didn't die? Now, she looked directly at Lepida. I know my brother. If he survives this, whatever it is, how do you think he'll respond to your daughter marrying his Uncle Claudius? Will he see it as a joyful union, or as a move against him? Lepida's spine eased, the realization creeping visibly across her face. And you, Agrippinilla added, eyes turning to Enobarbus. You've already survived one accusation of treason. A second would be less forgiving. Agrippinilla let the stillness sit for a moment longer, then said quietly, Has anyone seen Macro? That made them look up. I haven't seen him since the night Caligula fell ill, she continued. Not once. Not outside the imperial rooms. Not in the courtyard. Not even in the corridors. She let that settle. Enobarbus frowned. Domitia stirred, but none of them spoke. Either he's been dismissed, Agrippinilla said, and no one's told us, or he's making backup plans to throw his wife at Gemellus this time. Agrippinilla stood. Her eyes lingered on each of them in turn. Until we know what's happening, we say nothing. We do nothing. And not a word to Macro if he turns up, nor to Ennia. We carry on as a family united in our hopes that Caligula's health returns. She adjusted the pulla draped over her shoulders. If my brother lives, he will return to a world already reshaped in his absence. We cannot afford to be the ones he blames for it. And with that, Agrippinilla turned and left the room.